So thank you all for joining us today. This is inside OPRF Museum, and this is a virtual program that we do live every third Thursday of the month. This gives us the opportunity to talk about different things that we have on display in the museum or interesting things that we have in our collection. And today we're going to be featuring a new display that we have up for the month of February that highlights one of our local Olympians. And our presenter today, Peggy Sinko, who's our board president, is going to be mentioning not only him, but some other local Olympians. So we're celebrating here the last couple days of our Olympics and highlighting some local folks. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Peggy.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being here. Now, I am a fan of the Olympics, especially the Winter Games. And as you can see from my hat here, now I've actually never been to a games in person, but I do have the hat. And so once again, the past couple weeks, villagers have been cheering on a local athlete, Emery Lehman. And so this seemed to be a good time to look back at the 16 Olympians who have called Oak Park and River Forest home and share just a few of their stories. And these include individuals who have participated in the Summer Games, in the Winter Games, as well as the Paralympics. And the sports in which they have competed just cover a wide range. And they include track and field, water polo, wrestling, sailing, soccer, swimming and diving, basketball, rowing, and the winter sports of luge, pairs, figure skating, and speed skating. And while just making an Olympic team is a huge accomplishment, it happens that 8 of these 16 Olympians have actually stood on the medal podium. And this includes 3 gold medalists, and we see them pictured here. Chuck Hogue, who was a member of the 1952 gold medal basketball team. Ken Sitzberger, the amazing springboard diving winner of a gold medal in 1964. And Danny Tyler, who was a member of the 1996 gold medal softball team in Atlanta. And you can read about all 16 of these people on the Hometown Legends section of the museum website. And of course, you can find out more information at the museum's research center. So before I talk about our Winter Olympians, I want to go back to the early days of the modern Olympics and the story of our village's first Olympian. Now, as many of you know, the revived Olympics of the modern era were held for the first time in Athens, Greece in 1896. There were about 240 athletes that competed. They were all men. They came from 14 countries, which were all either European countries or people who were living in Europe at the time, with the exception of the United States. The United States did send competitors to this very first Olympic Games, and they were fairly well received. In 1900, 4 years later, the Games were held in Paris. But in 1904, for the first time, the United States was given the ability and the challenge to host the Olympic Games. And they were held that year in St. Louis. And it was at the 1904 St. Louis Games that we have our first local Olympian, Sidney Herbert Hatch. Now, interestingly, the 1904 Games, and I did not know this till I started looking into this, originally Chicago was supposed to host these games. But St. Louis was holding a World's Fair that year that was celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase. And back in this time, St. Louis and Chicago were huge rivals. It was always which city was bigger, which city was more prosperous, which city had more commerce. Any thing you can think of, they were trying to one up one another. And it seems that St. Louis, which was going to be hosting this World's Fair, said, well, we want to host the Olympic Games, and if you don't let us do that, we will hold a rival athletic event. And so the 1904 Olympics were switched to St. Louis. Now, unfortunately, that was perhaps not the best outcome. As one would expect, the overwhelming majority of the participants in the 1904 Olympics were Americans. Most Europeans, it was too expensive, it took too much time, they couldn't make the trip over to the United States. And frankly, the Olympics just couldn't compete with the wonders of the 1904 World's Fair. Who wants to watch a running race or people fencing when you could see the world's largest organ? Or you could try an ice cream cone that was popularized during this World's Fair, or seen a huge display of motor cars. Now today, I would be very surprised if anyone listening today knows about Sidney Herbert Hatch, but he was almost certainly the greatest long distance runner to come out of our two villages. Born in River Forest in 1883, he attended Oak Park High School, where he ran track. And I want to get one question answered right away. You hear the name Hatch, many of you are thinking, well, does he have anything to do with Hatch School in Oak Park? And the answer is no, but it's a little more complicated. Hatch School in Oak Park is named for W.H. Hatch, William H. Hatch, who was the longtime superintendent of schools in Oak Park. Sidney Hatch's father in River Forest was W.H. Hatch. Two completely different gentlemen, but they're living here at the same time period. And in addition, W.H. Hatch of River Forest did serve some time on the River Forest School Board. So sometimes these two men's stories get a little conflated, but no connection to Hatch School. Now, before I get into Sidney's Olympic experience in 1904, I want to just let you know about a few things about his incredible long distance running career. In 1906, he set an unofficial world's record in the 100-mile run. He had several top 10 finishes in the Boston Marathon, including a second place finish in 1917. And his specialty was the marathon. He ran about 45 marathons during his career. Incredibly, he finished every marathon that he started. He never failed to finish a marathon. And in 1916, he set a record running from Milwaukee to Chicago in 14 hours, 40 minutes. Now, not only was he a participant in the 1904 Games, but he also was in the 1908 Olympics, which were held in London. He competed in the marathon in 1908 and finished 14th. He was selected for the 1912 Games in Stockholm, Sweden, but did not attend. Now, in 1904, Sidney Hatch competed in two events in St. Louis. He ran in the marathon, where he finished 8th, and he won a silver medal as part of the 4-mile team event. Now, it's not a relay, and it's not an event that lasted very long. And he was part of a 5-man team. This 4-mile team event consisted of 5 runners. His team, they were all members of the Chicago Athletic Association. And they competed against a 5-man team from the New York Athletic Club. It was a mass start. All 10 runners started at the same time, and points were awarded based on your finishing position. Now, Sydney was an incredible distance runner, so 26 miles was kind of nothing for him. I have a feeling that a 4-mile run, it was kind of like asking a marathoner to suddenly run the 100-yard dash and think that they were going to be really good at that. I don't think that a 4-mile run was in Sydney's wheelhouse. And in fact, he finished last. He finished 10th in this event. And the New Yorkers just edged out the Chicago boys, but the Chicagoans, but Hatch and his teammates did win the silver medal. Now we see it right, as if that wasn't enough. Sidney Hatch has another incredible story. He served in the Army in World War I and was decorated for extraordinary heroism while under fire in France in October 1918. During the last month of the war, the armistice goes into effect just in November of 1918. He was awarded the Purple Heart and the Distinguished Service Cross, which was the Army's second highest military decoration, only below the Medal of Honor. And in this picture here on the right, that is the Distinguished Service Cross that you see him wearing on his uniform. In addition, he was decorated with the French Croix de Guerre, which was awarded by the government of France for heroism in battle. And I'd like to read just a little bit from his Distinguished Service Cross citation. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, July 9th, 1918, takes pleasure in presenting the Distinguished Service Cross to Private First Class Sidney H. Hatch for extraordinary heroism in action while serving with Headquarters Company 132nd Infantry Regiment near Bruges, France, on October 11th, 1918. After being wounded by a shell which buried him in a small hole, Private Hatch made a trip to battalion headquarters carrying a message from his platoon. Remember, he was a runner, so he was attached to a messenger unit. And after returning with an answer, assisted in carrying ammunition until the sergeant discovered that he had been wounded and sent him to the aid station. After the war, Hatch returned to Oak Park. He married, raised a family, eventually retired from marathon running, and he was a letter carrier in River Forest, worked for the post office for 30 years. Sidney Hatch died in 1966 at the age of 83. So now we turn to our Winter Olympians. And there's no question that Oak Park and River Forest's Olympian of the moment is Emery Lehman, who just won a bronze medal as part of the U.S. men's pursuit team in speed skating. Now, if it seems like we have been talking about Emery forever, it's because we have. He began his Olympic career as the youngest member of the U.S. speed skating team at the 2014 Games in Sochi, Russia, when he was a high school senior. Now, he was not only the youngest member of the speed skating team, he was the youngest male athlete on the entire U.S. Olympic team for those games. He also has the distinction now of being the local athlete who has been on the most Olympic teams, 3 different Olympic Games. We have a few others who were to 2 games, but never 3. Emery began his speed skating career at age 9 and won the World Junior Championship in the 5,000 meters in 2013. At the 2014 Games, not only was he the youngest competitor, but he was also the top U.S. finisher in the two events that in which he raced, which was the 10,000 meters, when he had a 10th place finish there, and also the 5,000 meters. 4 years later, he was back for the 2018 games in South Korea. Again, he he skated in two events, the 5,000 meter, and he was part of the men's team pursuit team that had a top 10 finish, placing in 8th place. In the run-up to the 2022 games, Lehman said that the team this year had a special focus on the team pursuit event, because they really felt that they were medal contenders for this year. And this was confirmed in just last December, when he was on the pursuit team that set a world record in this event. And he and his two teammates are still the world record holders in this team pursuit event. Lehman's had a very busy schedule at the Olympics. He raced in the 1,500 meters, finishing 11th. He stepped in to substitute for a teammate who tested positive for COVID and skated in the 5,000 meter event. And then finally topped it all off with a brilliant performance in the U.S. men's pursuit event, where the team won the bronze medal. He has had so much success in this sport, but it's great to see that finally add an Olympic medal to all those achievements. Emery has a quote that he said that he's particularly likes, and it comes from Muhammad Ali. And Ali said, "I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion." And I think we can all agree that Emery Lehman is truly a champion. Our next Winter Olympian was actually our first Winter Olympian from our communities, and that's Becky Wilsack, who competed in the Winter Olympics in 2002 in Salt Lake City in the women's single luge. She grew up in River Forest, is a graduate of Oak Park and River Forest High School. And I have to say, I am in awe of people like her who see human beings hurtling down an icy track at 80 miles an hour on what to me looks like a really flimsy sled. And they say, wow, that looks like fun. I think I would like to do that. But Becky was drawn to that at a very early age. And she was discovered at a sliding tryout in Naperville when she was in 7th grade. And she really took to the sport, and she became a top performer for the United States in women's single luge in international competitions. She won a bronze medal in 2001 in the mixed team event at the World Luge Championships, and then competed in the event at the 2002 Games in Salt Lake City. She finished 5th, which up to that point was tied her for the best ever finish by an American female luger. She was named the USA Luge's 2002 Female Athlete of the Year. Rebecca Wilsack still lives in the greater Chicago area, and I'm sure that she has been remembering her Olympic moments this week. Our final Olympian, Winter Olympian, is Erin Parsham, who competed in pairs figure skating at the 2006 Games in Torino, Italy. I'm especially excited about this because the museum currently has on display some items from Erin's skating career that his family has graciously loaned to us for the the Olympic Games include, and you'll hear a little bit more about this, but there's his Olympic vest, his hat with all the Olympic pins on it. And we're going to be hearing from Aaron's mom, Georgia, just a little bit later. Aaron began his skating career at the Ridgeland Commons ice rink. He participated in the annual ice shows and said that once he did that first ice show, he was really hooked. Now, hundreds, probably thousands of kids learned to skate at Ridgeland Commons, and they loved being in the ice shows. But for most, their skating careers began and ended right there, but not Aaron's. At 14, he entered his first competition. He started out as a singles skater, switched to pair skating at age 20, and began came out of Detroit, went to Detroit, where he joined the Detroit Skating Club. Now, in addition, he somehow found time to complete his undergraduate degree in economics. Now, Parsham and his partner, Marcy Hinsman, who we see, I believe, at right, had a strong third place finish in the 2005 U.S. Figure Skating Championships. But the U.S. was only going to be able to send 2 pairs teams to the Olympics the following year. And so they knew that they were going to have to improve. They really wanted to improve. They wanted desperately to make the Olympic team, and they knew that they could put in another year of hard work. But during that 2005 skating season, Marcy tore the ACL in her knee. She had surgery. She had a several-month recovery until they could get back to serious training, but the training paid off. And in the 2006 U.S. Figure Skating Championships, they placed second, which qualified them for a position on the U.S. Olympic team. Now, Aaron and Marcy placed 13th in the Torino Olympics. But according to Aaron, he said, coming into the Olympics, we knew we didn't have a shot at a medal. The achievement for us was qualifying for the Olympics. The whole Olympic experience to Marcy, myself, and our families was to just enjoy the celebration and to be part of something that was vastly bigger than ourselves. They certainly achieved their goal. And while they didn't medal, Aaron Parsham himself made Olympic history for being the first African-American male to skate for the U.S. Olympic figure skating team. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Rachel.
Thank you, Peggy. So, thank you for all of this research and great information about these Olympians. I'm going to take my mask off here, so hopefully you folks can hear me a little bit better. And I want to quickly tell you a little bit about what we have on display here that came to us on loan from Georga Parchem, who is Aaron's mother. And she mostly gave us some things that were pictures from events that Aaron skated in. And what you see on the screen now is the jacket that he wore during the opening ceremonies at the 2006 Torino Olympics, and also a commemorative cowbell, which adds a little bit to the story that I want to focus on with Georgia today, which is the family's side, more so than the Olympians' participation in these games, is also the families who have gotten to watch their careers grow and hopefully also go to the Olympics with them and see them in that experience. So that is what I would like to bring on Georgia to talk about. And I'm very grateful to have you here today. So let me see if I can unmute you here and have a couple of minutes to hear some things from you. So let's see.
I'm unmuted. Yes.
Perfect. So
Am I unmuted? Yes.
thank you again for being here. And again, I would like to have you start off by telling us a little more about your experience at the Olympics, because here's the thing. This year is unlike any other, that the Olympians who are competing this year do not have the family support with them at the games. So this is something that you experienced firsthand, and I want to hear a little bit more about that, going to Italy with your family and watching Erin skate over the Olympic rings.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, it's honestly true that Erin almost, with a former partner, by one vote of one judge, missed going to Salt Lake City Olympics first. And then in this case, they came in a position where they did go, but they weren't first. First is the only guaranteed spot. So we didn't really know if their second place placement would actually get them there. So this is a month before the Olympics, and we find out that he's going and his partner's going, and we have 36 people that are going to go. 19 of my family members, friends from Oak Park, and the partner's family. And we have no place to stay. We have no skating tickets, which are hard to get. We have nothing. So it's a battle, or it's a search and find on the internet with 3 or 4 people in the family just doing it nonstop. Tickets for the actual skating events are the hardest to get because they sell out. And we got the package of tickets, both Marcy and our family, from the skaters' family who did not make it. They bought the tickets because they thought they definitely were going. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
So that's part of it. We happened to buy the pair skating was at the very beginning of the Olympics that year. This year it's at the end. And the biathletes performed then. That's a big thing. So the US biathlete team had bought out an entire hotel in the suburb of Torino, a Holiday Inn, and they're not filled because their event comes a little later. So we were all of us were able to stay at one place that provided, they provided for athletes. They provided food in there, transportation to every venue, etc. It's exciting for parents because you're going to see your child skate at the Olympics. It's an honor. Just being an Olympian is honestly the honor that most of them have. Very few are in there in the pressure cooker of wanting those medals. So the experience is more mellow. It's more exciting. It's more thrilling. We all cried, of course, and all that, but it wasn't because they skated beautifully, and that's what mattered. But it was fun to do all the things that they provide for parents. Was amazing. We don't do that, and we don't provide that much in America for the skaters of athletes. But when you go to the Olympics, oh my gosh, it's the Bank of America, for example, had bought out an entire Italian hotel, 4 stories tall. They had big screen TVs all over, and they had food available for parents and families and friends of athletes, the entire athletic during the whole Olympics. So you could meet there, and they had tickets for events that they had available for you. So we were able to see women's hockey. We were able to see odd events, but fun events. And we just did skating events. We only stayed in Torino. We didn't go out to the mountains in the snow. We just stayed in Torino, which was contained, but we got to see speed skating. We got to see a lot of events just because they were gracious hosts to parents, which was really fun. 19 family members. We traveled Italy afterwards. It was amazing. It was exciting. When we first got there, we were so early that Rob Elgas of NBC, remember Rob Elgas, NBC TV, he came and he called us as we were coming, actually just arriving at the hotel, and asked if he could pick us up and take us to the torch parade, because it was in a little town out of Torino, and he wanted some Olympic parents there. So we got amazing things to do. The Today Show was there. Our kids were very photographic. They're beautiful, and they're both of color. She's Venezuelan, and he is African American. So they were picked out. They had great interviews on the Today Show, and the Today Show was outside. It's not like now when nothing is happening. I'm sad for them because all this festivities that goes around the support and the celebration of your being a parent and being an Olympian isn't there. It's sad. So yes, they were outside, and you'd come up, and before our kids were going to be interviewed on the Today Show, right out in the open, and with people all around, not like today, right? And we got to see that. And before that, a a fashion show from Italy, from Milan, in which ladies were walking, covered their faces. Odd fashion, really odd fashion, odd Italian fashion, but fun. Italy is, Torino, if you've never seen it, has the most amazing things. You can't believe how fun it is. I never would have gone to Torino other than this. They have the museum, the modern museum of all of the movie industry of Italy. You know how good that is, and modern, beautiful. It was fun. It was celebratory. The athletes, they got to join us a lot because their event was over quickly. And so we were able to be with them in some of these events. And then we went on to travel Italy. But I think that when at the event where they skated well and they were announced to be Olympians, they had an opening or a reception then for all the skaters, and all of the famous skaters were there. And Scott Hamilton said, you to the athletes, and this is most of them, like 98% of the athletes aren't going to medal. So he said, you are always going to be an Olympian. It's a company that you will never, it's like being a Canadian. It's like being whatever. You will always forever now be an Olympian. And it's really an honor just to represent your country, to do it well and to do it with grace. But I wanted to finish with one story. The thing I'm most proud about Aaron is I love the fact that he competed in the Olympics, but I love the fact that he's a real Oak Park kid. I'm proud of his character. He skated in all those little shows, and every day, I swear to God, just this Monday, I was at the 19th Century Club at an event, and I had my name tag on, and this parents I didn't know came up to me and said, "Oh, you must be Aaron Parchem's mom." My little girl was in his when he played the genie in Aladdin. She was one of his little genettes or whatever, and he was so wonderful to all of those kids. I want to thank you. You raised a really good kid, and that's kind of what I feel about my son. He's a really wonderful human being, and he happened to be talented and talented enough and determined enough to pursue something like skating. And end up at the Olympics, which is cool. He did most kids, I always think it's interesting when they say, well, I always thought I was going to go to the Olympics, because Aaron's goal was to go to Worlds. Worlds is every year. It's not a gamble. It's not a 4-year gamble. Every sport you're in, you have to be in top physical shape the year you go. So it's a gamble that every 4th year, especially in a sport like skating, it's not as longevity. Doesn't have as much longevity as as like running or bicycling. Okay, so he made over his goal. He wanted to be in world level competitions, and he was in many all over the world, starting actually with his junior level pair. So we had a lot of fun traveling and watching him do that. He had a great career in it, and now he has little kids. He's still, the thing he does that I'm proud of too is he's on the board of an organization that supports, it came out of Figure Skaters for Harlem, and it really supports, now it's Figure Skaters in Detroit, and it skates, at the rink, it supports a whole program for children from Detroit, mostly African-American, mostly girls, not too many boys come into it, but anyway, and it's not about, and they're provided a whole skating program and an academic program with tutoring. It's about learning discipline, learning how to be good, disciplined people through skating and have fun. But it's really, the goal is to get them into college. And they're very successful. So I'm proud of him and what he does. And he's an Oak Park kid. That's all I can say. And we had a wonderful time being able to go to Torino and having all that support system set up, actually by American commercial entities, mostly, not the Olympic Committee itself. But
that makes sense.
It was wonderful. So.
Oh, thank you, Georgia. You answered all of my questions. So thank you for sharing your story and sharing some of Aaron's story. It's so nice to hear, especially some of the things that he's up to these days, and really just hearing how much you all appreciate the sport that he is in and the worlds that you have experienced. So thank you. And we, with that, are almost out of time. So if there's anything else that you want to mention, Georgia, we just have one more minute. And if anybody has questions to quickly.
No, but I love curling because I grew up in North Dakota, right near the Canadian border, and you were going to talk about curling and didn't.
Oh, we were not going to talk about curling actually,
Oh.
because we have not yet had an Oak Park or River Forest Olympic curler. So
Okay.
let's get on that. Oak Park and River
Okay.
Forest, let's get on that. So that is all that we have time for today. So thank you for sharing. Georgia, thank you so much for being here. And Peggy, thank you so much for your presentation and your research and sharing these wonderful stories of all these local folks. So with that, I want to invite everybody to send in questions or comments. If you have those, feel free to email the email that you have on your screen and tell us what you'd like to see in the future, and join us for our virtual programs we do twice a month. So I will sign off and thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Rachel.